Are going to be doing 11 lowest rated books on my Goodreads. So Goodreads has a thing where, you know, it takes the average of all these books, and I'm not going to include any books under 1,000 people because I think that the lower your rating has, like, the more like one star or 1 3-star has a rating. I'm gonna talk about whether these were actually bad, whether these are actually doing. So the lowest on here is 318, which is incredibly low for Goodreads. And this is by Horace Walpole, and it is The Castle of Otranto. It has 24,000 reviews / ratings on here, and it makes me so sad because this book was epic. I think it's published in like 1776. That's the United States Constitution, I think. I'm a Canadian. Anyways, it's somewhere in the 1700s, and it might be much earlier, like the 40s or something. And it is delightful. It is considered the first like horror novel of all time, but it's kind of like silly as well, and it's like it comes off as satirical despite the fact that it's early. He was a politician, and he originally did it under another name, and then when it became really popular and everyone like adored it, then he's like on the third printing, I think, he was like, no, it's me, and then everyone trashed it. Can you just imagine being like, yes, it was super popular until I let people know it was actually me? And because he had said that it was so it's set during the like during the Crusades and stuff like that, and he says that, you know, this person who's a fictional, so the author is fictional and the translator is fictional, and he's like, I translated it from this ancient time. So then when they found out that it wasn't actually a story from the Crusades, they trashed it. Anyways, I think I gave it like 4 stars. I adore it. Is it like the same or as good as many contemporary books? Probably not, but it is hilarious, and it is definitely worth the read if you enjoy classic books. Out of Watchmen by Harper Lee. This has a lot, almost 250,000 ratings, and has 3.32. And I do not blame this. I know that it's a very controversial book. Surprisingly enough, it is actually one of the books that has the most emotional meaning for me. I read it 4 years ago. The second or first audiobook I ever read on my channel, and it has such a special place. I know that there's controversial because she didn't publish it for 60 years, and then as she was dying, about a year before she died, it was published. The scandalous part of it is that we reveal that Atticus is low-key racist, like high-key racist, but in a racism that's just like, I want what's best, but like they're going too far. And to this people, it destroyed a childhood hero. It destroyed the like one guy in classic literature that seemed like he was good. But to me, especially when it came at the time, and I really needed a story like this, I don't know, because it's really about how Jean Louise, known as Scout in the original books, finds that this person that she looked up, who thought she taught tolerance and taught her all of these things, actually turned out to not have those beliefs. And as someone who has come to terms with the fact that the people who raised me, the people that I took a lot of inspiration from, are a lot of people that I don't respect their beliefs, and even though they might have said tolerance, they have a lot of disgusting beliefs underneath. Really, really hard. And I remember having to go through this and rewind. I was crying so hard I couldn't hear the audiobook. I don't know what I would think about it today, and I haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird since I was 14. I read this since I was 19, so I'd be interested in reading both of them now. And Daisy Miller by Henry James. I'm surprised it's so unpopular. I've read it twice. I really like it. The second time I realized that like part of my like amazement was not quite as amazed as whatever, because it isn't as revolutionary, but I still really enjoy it. I like Henry James a lot as a writer. I think this is a great story. So it's about this girl and this guy. So she's American, and she is much more physical and much more affectionate with people than he is as this like British person. They're both in Italy and stuff like that, and it's kind of a misunderstanding, and it has a tragic end, and it's really about misunderstanding. And Henry James was American and later British, or he was British and then later American. I can't really remember, but he lived a substantial amounts of his life in both times. So it's about the differences between society and how we misunderstand each other, and I think that it is a really important book for that. It's published quite early. Disappearing Moon Cafe. This is kind of a stretch because it's not actually it only has 788 ratings, but it is a very controversial book, and it's also a book that I think deserves to be talked about more. And this is by Sky Lee. She's a Canadian Chinese woman. She wrote this book in 1990, and it is about this family starting during the gold rush and during the times like that in the 1890s, and it follows them until the present day of the 1990s. And it's about miscommunication and racism and how these people and how the immigrant experience of women and men and like sexuality and not telling truths and stuff like that. It reminds me a lot of reasons why people like 100 Years in Solitude. It has many similar things, and it also has the most ickiness of both of the way that incest happens is not glamorized like it is in Hundreds of Years of Solitude. It is because people are having affairs and they're not willing to tell, even when their children get into romantic relationships. They're so unable to express their emotions. They're unable to tell them that this is your brother. 342, The Turn of the Screw. And this is, again, I love Henry James. I love this book. It's about a governess. The children are acting a little bit off, and it's told as a ghost story around a fire, and I love the way. So he doesn't ever tell us if it's a real ghost story or it's not. So like Henry James specifically only ever published this with normal stories, and yet it's a ghost story. So it's like, what is going on? Is it all in her mind? Is she seeing things, or is the things actual real manifestations and stuff like that? And I read it twice last year. It was delightful. I love Blind Manor, the adaptation of it. It is an incredible story. Really recommend it. Although like many people who probably don't like classics might not like it, but if you like classics, book that I despise, I think this is universally despised. Like it deserves to be lower many than others. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, sitting at a 3.44 rating. It has nearly 500,000 ratings, and it deserves every one of those bad ratings. They go on a riverboat and they say racist crap, and that is pretty much it. 344 as well, Gentlemen of the Road by Michael Chabon. This has 13,000 ratings, and I despise this as well. This is also another 1-star, and oh my goodness, there was just sexual assault and sexism and just so many things. These are like, it's written in like the 2000s, but it's set during like Arthurian times, and yeah, I blocked most of it out of my mind. Like it was also incredibly boring. We have Beowulf, which is an anonymous epic poem and considered one of the most like first thing of English literature. Over 1 million ratings, and it is sitting at 346, which makes sense. Like it is not, it's not the most readable. It took me a while to read it. It is very dense. If you want to understand what happens and don't want to read it, Overly Sarcastic Productions has a great summary of it and discussion of it, which I definitely listened to after reading it so that I could understand what the heck was going on. You might have noticed that almost every single one of these books is a classic novel, and I think that classic novels, there's a reason why people are more likely to read them just for the sake of reading them or being told they're going to read them. And also there's like a language barrier, or even if it's the same language, like the way that we talk and the way that stories are being told are very different. This is the very first of like a very contemporary story that has such a low rating, and this is 347, and we have The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory, and this has 76k ratings, and I was so surprised that this was so low. I really enjoyed this. This is a book I think I read a month ago, and as for rom-coms, like, it's good. Like, I still think I gave it like 3.5 stars. Like, I didn't give it like a hugely high rating, but it is a story about this girl, and she is a journalist, and her boyfriend is an actor, and he proposes to her on a jumbo cam, spelling her name wrong, because, you know, he really wants to marry a black woman. He and his sister are there, and they pretend to know her, so that the press is like coming around her, so that she can get out without talking to the press. And yeah, it's a great love story. It's fun. It's you know, and then she's attracted to him, so like they go out and have like a thank you supper and stuff like that, and start hanging out and stuff like that. It's one of those meet cutes that actually makes sense. Like I could see this happening, and I really liked that their families and their friends weren't just accessories or weren't just there for the sake of being there. Like, I really thought that they were full characters, and it wasn't brought up only for when drama was needed. I thought it was well done. The Mystery of Hollow Places is at a 3.48 and has 1,800 ratings. This is a book that means a whole lot to me. I again read it in 2017, right when I was starting my channel. It's a mystery. It's about these two girls in high school, and she loves Rebecca so much, and this is one of the reasons why I read Rebecca. And pretty much her mom has disappeared a really long time ago, and it's a lot about mental health and about not wanting to be troubled waters is kind of a lot of it, and how you can feel like you don't have choice, and like the same thing in the bell jar later on, like the feeling that mental health is always looming over you. And I don't know if I would enjoy it now or what the representation is now, but at the time it spoke to a part of my soul and a part to my experience that I'd never seen depicted before. So this hurt.
Description of depression in the book was extraordinary. I literally just started crying because I was like, I have never seen someone actually describe depression, how it actually feels.
3.5, we have On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madame C.J. Walker by Alila Perry Bundles. It definitely deserves a higher rating than this. It is lovely. It is slow maybe, but it is an inspiring, hopeful, well done, really in-depth looks at not only her life, but the end of the 19th century and early 20th century, and I think that everyone should read it, especially if you want to hear about heroes that are not as well represented or not as well given the light. Like, I think it is an extraordinary, like, must-read book. So the fact that it's so low rated actually makes me really, really sad. Let me know which books that are rated high or low and are unpopular or you hate, and I'm going to do a sequel with this highly rated books as well and talk about whether I think they're good or not. So I feel like that will be a much more controversial take than these, because mostly I liked these even though they were unpopular. Anyways, happy reading, writing, and I will see you next time.